Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and once again, I'll be your host. And today, we're going to be talking about Malta as a digital nomad destination with my guest, Luca Arrigo. Luca, welcome to the show.
Hi, Becky. Thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to sharing all of the little secrets about Malta.
I am really excited to hear about this too, because I just went to Malta for my first time last May. I was just there for a week, and I felt like there was so much still to discover that we'd love to hear more about from you today.
Fantastic. Glad you got a chance to visit, and I hope you had some sunny weather whilst you were here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, just so everybody can understand, can you tell us about your background with Malta? What is your connection?
Sure. So I'm actually Maltese. It's where I grew up. It was only later in life that I had the chance to live in other countries. But growing up in Malta, you get kind of into the Mediterranean lifestyle. So that's the kind of what I got to enjoy growing up here. Over the years, I've got a chance to leave, but always when I come back, I get to appreciate the kind of the lifestyle behind being on a small island that is kind of tight knit and has a good kind of weather and a lot of things to do. It has changed a lot, I would say, over the last 20 years from a more kind of sleepy island where people maybe would go to study English or retire to more of kind of like a metropolitan island where you do have like a busy core, kind of like a city vibe, and then you have the north and the other island, which is a bit more kind of calming and nature and this sort of thing.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're going to get into that because when I first went to Malta, I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was one island, but it's actually a few islands, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Actually, one time I had the opportunity to kayak all the way around Malta. So Malta is one of the islands. The other islands are Gozo and Comino. That was a journey of over 100 kilometers, which took over 18 hours.
Wow. Yes, there's more to discover from this like group of islands than you'd imagine. So first of all, I love to start with people just getting an idea. Okay, where is Malta, Luca? And is it part of the Schengen? Is it like, do you need a visa to enter? Can you tell us about that as if we're like just arriving into Malta?
So Malta is right in the center of the Mediterranean, between Sicily and Libya. It is a EU country. It's part of the Schengen. We use the euro. We do have two official languages, so that's English and Maltese. So that's important to know if you were ever, let's say, leasing a property or starting a company in the Maltese jurisdiction. You can use English in your contracts, which many people find quite useful. That you can get around with just English, but obviously the locals do have their own language, which is Maltese. Maltese is a very special language, very unique, just because it's the only Semitic language that is written with the Latin alphabet. Semitic means it's got Arabic roots. 60% of the language is actually Arabic, and then the other 40% is English and French and Italian mixed in, including some Spanish too, actually. So we are a very multicultural people as well, inhabited by many different powers over the centuries. So even what Maltese look like is very varied, and we're very welcoming people to travelers because I think that's a big part of our DNA as a people.
Yeah, it's such a crossroads, right? And it's like the history of Malta. We don't have time to go deep into it, but really fascinating.
Don't get me
So
started because I won't stop.
everyone watching, listening, look it up. It's much more interesting than than you could even imagine. So, okay, it's part of the Schengen. They use the euro. English is one of the official languages. Okay, but like I always ask this question for every destination. Is there anything I should bring with me to Malta that is hard to find on the island that you think I might need or I might miss from like, I don't know, where I'm from?
That's a very good, interesting question, and I guess that would depend where you come from.
I'm from the
Uh,
US personally, but you may not know what might be missing.
funnily, funnily enough, let's say people from the UK, they find a lot of comforts from home in Malta. and we're talking about things like Marks and Spencers or even the supermarket items, even in terms of medicines at the pharmacies and this sort of thing. Because we are based on the British system, there's been a big influence even in terms of products we buy and this sort of thing. So I would say that if you're from the UK, maybe not so many things that, that you won't find back home. But maybe Amazon Prime takes a bit longer just because everything needs to be flown into the country. So that's one interesting fact. We don't have same day delivery, but I think when it comes to the majority of products and services, you do find in Malta today. Um, uh, yeah, so I don't think there's too much to miss in terms of or things that you must pack that you won't really find here. That's an interesting question, though. Maybe I need to think about it.
Okay, this brings me to another question that hopefully people look up before they go to Malta, but you kind of referenced it here. In Malta, do you use European plugs or British plugs?
Yeah, the British plugs, the 3-pin British plugs. So an adapter for those is needed. Maybe that's something people usually forget because inside the EU, most countries are now with the same plugs. But we also drive on the left, so even when it comes to driving a car, that's something you would need to get used to over here.
Yeah, these little things that the history with the UK can throw you a little bit, but also make Malta really interesting. So, okay, my next question is always, when you're looking for accommodation in Malta, as a nomad, is it still best for longer term accommodation to check Airbnb? Do you have anything else that is popular to use? I'm sure booking.com. How can you find like affordable longer term accommodation?
Yeah, so I think that's actually a challenge, a big challenge with nomads in Malta is affordable accommodation, especially in the summer, just because the tourism here has grown so much. So there's a large demand for Airbnbs. And there's a lot of hotels, but obviously sometimes hotels don't cater exactly what nomads are looking for. So the long-term market, I would say it's best to speak with agents here and to find a good agent. It helps to have someone you can trust to do a good job for you. But if you wanted to do more independent research, there's a lot of Facebook groups that have properties that you can find, for longer term. There is a co-living space in Malta, which is called Evolve Co-living, fantastic space. They have a really nice community as well, if that's something that nomads find important. But if you're looking at more kind of affordable accommodation, I would say the sister island of Gozo has much better options in terms of Airbnbs. Even in terms of for what you get, it's actually possible to find a property maybe with a garden, maybe with a pool in Gozo that's not going to break the bank too much. As well as the north and the south of the islands, a bit further away from the urban center, which might seem like an issue, but really and truly, Malta is quite small. So you're never 30 minutes from anywhere, no matter where you are on the island. But yeah, if you're looking for accommodation in the central hub, I'd say it's quite competitive, quite hard to find good nomad accommodation in Slima, St. Julian's, which are very popular.
Okay. Would you say the Nomad hub in Malta is the capital of Valletta, or is there a hub in Gozo as well?
I'd say a lot. Most people are actually in either the urban hub of Slema, St. Julian's for their day to day, maybe in living in a kind of an adjacent neighborhood, which isn't far away. I think Gozo, there's a growing community of people who are seeking a bit more of the peaceful island life. It's also I've seen a lot of families set up in Gozo, even young people who are not necessarily looking to have pubs to go to during the week and are looking for a bit more of like a healthy lifestyle. Gozo is an amazing option, I think.
Okay. Well, how about the Wi-Fi? I know us nomads, we always want to know about Wi-Fi. Is it good Wi-Fi?
For sure, no, we have some of the best internet speeds in Europe, I'd say. I think we're 40th out of 106 countries. That's mainly because we have such a strong tech industry in Malta, especially the iGaming. It's a huge part of the economy, so we have very good IT infrastructure. There's 4 5G from everywhere. So just this morning, I was down at the beach at a normal coffee shop, connected to my 4G on my phone, my own hotspot, and getting my work done that way. Not because they wouldn't have Wi-Fi, just because it's quicker to just connect to your 4 5G anywhere you are. But yeah, so no, in terms of internet, it's not something you'd struggle with at all.
Okay. And how about the safety? Always ask about safety in every place.
Yeah, obviously, being an island, it means that, if you're a bad actor, it's very hard for you to hide. So it is quite a safe island, especially compared to many countries. Obviously, like everywhere, it has its small issues. Maybe so there are certain zones which could be more risky, depending on what you're doing. So I'd say most accidents would happen in the nightlife area, where obviously that's kind of like a hub for its own reasons. But other than that, you can feel quite safe at night walking around, and both as a man or a woman, you don't really have any issues in terms of where you can go and what you can do at all.
Okay, that's great to hear. Now I have to move on to my favorite topic, food. Luca, okay, what kind of food is typical in Malta, and do you have any favorite spots that you really recommend nomads to go to when they're there?
Yeah, like my favorite restaurant in Valletta would probably be Tribe. A very, very good restaurant. It's got a very mixed kind of menu. But the food scene in Malta is fantastic. Like there's a lot of restaurants to try. We do have our traditional dishes, which as a visitor, everyone would also always like to try. So we have certain things like pasta with rabbit. We have a dish called bracioli, which is a stuffed meat dish. There are some places that do serve snails, although they're not so popular. There's a lot of food which is inspired by Italian cuisine, especially the kind of the traditional dishes, very kind of rich meat or veg dishes. But then, you will find everything. So in terms of food places, you'll find the restaurants open doing a traditional Melbourne breakfast to, high-end restaurants that are creating kind of exotic dishes and this sort of thing. So we do have a lot of restaurants to offer. Again, this is thanks to the established tourism scene that these restaurants are basically popped up all over the island and have reached quite a good quality, I would say.
Yeah, when I was there, I saw a lot of things that I recognized throughout Europe, like great gelato places, a lot of like craft beer. I was surprised by the variety in the capital city.
Yes, yes. No, variety you will find, definitely. Definitely. We do love to eat out, at both the expats and locals in Malta. So you'd find even on a weekday in February that the places are not empty. It's a beautiful sunny day as well so even you'll have restaurants where you can eat outdoor or sit outdoors to work from and this sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, on that note, what is the weather like in Malta throughout the year? How cold does it get? And how hot does it get on the hottest months?
This year especially has been very mild, but in general, winters here are extremely pleasant. It's the warmest in Europe, you would say. So whilst maybe if you were living here, you'd say, oh, it's a bit cold today. Once you put it in perspective, it's actually really not. So no, it's great weather, great climate. In the summer, it's only gets, for me personally, too hot at the end of July till maybe the start of September where I feel like, oh my God, I'm dying. But other than that, you have t-shirt weather that's not too bad. And really, it's just January and February where it's a bit cold that you would maybe wear a jacket at night. So jacket weather in the day is almost never.
If I was a nomad looking to go somewhere in August, would you not recommend Malta in August? Because you just said it's too hot for you, but also I know in Europe, most people are off in the month of August. I don't know if that's true also in Malta, but does that mean a lot of places might be closed?
No, so it depends on the person as well, right? So for me in August it's too busy in Malta, but for someone else they might like that because there's a lot of festivals happening, there's a lot of different events that are happening. So it's actually an exciting time to be here. There's also the local village feasts, which are their own spectacle, fireworks every weekend in a different village. So the summer is an exciting time. I personally prefer Malta when it's on the shoulder months, so um, spring and autumn, which are still quite busy nowadays, but a bit less hectic. And even in January, February, there's a bit less things going on, but that means a bit less distractions as well. So I feel like the people who live in Malta, they tend to work a bit more in the winter and really relax a bit more in the summer. Doesn't mean you would have shops closed. So while some companies do go on a shutdown during the same week as Italy for Agosto, you won't have main stores or supermarkets or something like this that are not opening. There would be maybe some more traditional businesses that are maybe lawyers or the sort of thing would take a week off or something.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, also, if I was coming to Malta for a month, any time of the year, do I need a car? How can I get around? What is the public transportation like in Malta?
No, I mean, there's public transportation with the buses here. I think maybe one day we might need a metro in Malta, but not yet. But no, a lot of people decide to either rent a car or there's quite affordable taxis. So I've used taxis in many countries, and the rates that you get in Malta are usually quite good, unless it's a peak hour. And there you've got the Bolt app, the eCabs app. There's multiple apps which basically pick up and drop. Same thing with food delivery. But yeah, I think if you wanted to have a bit more flexibility during a week here, having a car could help you to see a few more spots. But if you didn't, there's other options. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was there just for a week, I felt like if I'd stayed in Valletta, just around the city center, no problem. I didn't need a car. But the moment I want to go see some like archaeological ruins somewhere, then it felt much easier to get there by car. So it seems like there's
That's it.
plenty of places to rent a car.
That's it. That's it. And obviously, if you're spending most of your time in Slima or in Valletta, and then you're just making a few trips out of town, you would be able to get by with a cab or something like this.
Yeah, I went on a few hikes, and even on those hikes, in the middle of, like you were saying before, you're 30 minutes from anywhere. Bolts were very happy to go to the middle of. It felt for me like the middle of nowhere, but they would pick me up. So it's very well connected, I think, even without a car.
Yes, yes, that's very true.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm curious about co-working spaces because you mentioned Evolve as a co-living space, but do you have any like go-to spots where even cafes where you love to go and just work and it's not that expensive?
Today I was working from a place called Munchies, which is in Golden Bay, a really nice spot on the water's edge. In San Juan, there's a co-working space called In Sync. Very, very good setup. There's a lot of locals actually who work from there in the creative industry. Would love to see some more nomads enter that space because I think there would be a very interesting crossover of ideas with that crowd. In Slima, there's a number of places. There's one called Fuel Up. There aren't a lot of co-working kind of cafes in Slima, but especially when it's busy, because sometimes you would have too many people for me and to have kind of peace and quiet. But then there is the Soho co-working space, which is very, very popular with people to co-work from. It's got a number of locations in Malta, and they do a lot of events as well for the community here in the tech scene. Um, uh, but yeah, in terms of cafes, I do change change quite a bit.
That's great. It's great to hear like there's a variety of places you could choose from. Okay, and now you mentioned the locals. Is it easy for a nomad, would you say, to arrive and like again, let's say we're staying for a month to plug into that local scene and start meeting locals or other nomads?
So yeah, I think finding other nomads in Malta sometimes can be challenging because there isn't like other than Evolve, there isn't a big kind of community that's doing regular events. But I think that it's mainly because there's such a large expat community in Malta in general, that it's easy for you to find people that are doing things that you want to join in on. So if you're looking for salsa classes, you'll find a salsa community. If you're looking for surfing, you'll find a surf community. If you're looking for, different kind of people who are not from the place but doing, an activity you enjoy, you will find that here. So I think that in those terms, it's very easy to meet people who are new to Malta and who have maybe just arrived and are looking to kind of make friends also. But kind of like a community like there is in Bansko, where it's like a lot of nomads going to the same events and you see each other week in, week out is a bit more challenging just because there's a bit more it's a bit larger in that sense.
Yeah, more spread out means it's a little harder to see people that often. I know. I was going to say,
You
make
see,
it, make that
you
community.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big effort. It's a big effort. Um,
Absolutely.
uh, but I think the right people could actually make it happen here because when you look at the numbers, there's thousands of digital nomads in Malta in that sense. So having a bit more of a community building over here could prove useful, I'd say, for the nomads that come.
It does seem like a great spot because of the weather. I know nomads love that mild weather. And, like you said, the mildest winters in Europe. So, yeah, perhaps in the future, after people listen and watch us here, they'll also feel more drawn to Malta because I think it's very much an overlooked part of Europe. It's like you said, a really vibrant mixture of so many things, but people kind of almost forget about it sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. It's an interesting spot. I think maybe the property prices have put people a bit off because when you look at the rental costs and this sort of thing, it's not it's basically sometimes the cost of a big city, or a medium-sized European city. So I guess that's one of the challenges when you compare to other nomad spots. But then it does mean that maybe you'll have more of a crowd that's a bit more established, that's looking for something else,
Oh, yeah.
especially in the crypto community. We have a lot of crypto people here because Malta was so early to kind of come out in support of crypto entrepreneurs. So there's a very, very large presence of digital nomads who are more crypto nomads. And I wouldn't say they're the same crowd, but obviously they have things in common.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm wondering like if you or th what is your favorite place in Malta? Yes, I wanted to ask you that. Do you have a favorite town or a favorite part of one of the islands?
I mean, I love the beaches, so for me, Ain Tuffiha is my favorite beach. Singita Beach, it's called. It's like a great spot because there's no buildings around. It's a nice sandy beach. It's my favorite place for sure. My favorite sunset in Malta
I'm
definitely
gonna
is at Ain
get
Tuffiha.
the spelling of that for it from you. We'll put it in the description.
Yeah, so it's like Ghajan, and Tuffiha Tuffieha. But yeah, yeah, you could search Singita is probably easier to spell. Singita. Yeah.
Okay. I do want to ask you because we were kind of talking about this as well. It's not about, staying for a month, but it might be something to put on people's radar. So I've heard that Malta has very favorable tax plans and options for people if they want to set up their residency there. Is that true?
Yes, yes. So there's a number of schemes that exist. There's a Nomad visa, which is not a tax residency. It just gives you access to Schengen, but you keep all your taxes back home. And then we've got a couple of others, which is, for example, if you're a non-resident and you decide, or you're a resident and you want to open up a company here, but you're basically non-Maltese, your company in Malta can take advantage of a tax rebate scheme, which gives you a final corporate tax rate of 5%. The normal tax rate is 35%, but there's this special scheme for foreign entrepreneurs to pay only 5% in corporate tax for their company. And then there's also a couple of other schemes, which one of them is called the Global Residence Program. That's designed for people who want to actually establish their tax residency in Malta, and it gives them a flat tax rate on their income of 15%. And this is achieved through getting a rental in Malta. There's some government fees that need to be paid, but that's another one. We're also quite well known for our investment migration, so that's there's one it's called the Permanent Residency Program, which is similar to the GRP, where you need to have a property here that you're either renting or that you've invested in, and there's some government fees involved. Some small differences between the programs, but as a destination for people who are looking for a different lifestyle and also getting into a tax-friendly jurisdiction, Malta's got quite a few different parts that make it attractive. For example, the crypto people over the past 6 months, it's been insane how many have been moving over to Malta because of our capital gains tax, which is at 0% on crypto. So if somebody's just a holder of Bitcoin in many countries, they're actually taxed on the increase of its value. Whilst in Malta, if you've been a long time holder and you're not a trader, this is taxed at 0%. And then some of these crypto people, if they're active traders, what they do is they create a company to be taxed at 5% with the tax rebate. So if you were trading on as a sole individual, you would be taxed at the normal income tax rate, which goes up to 35%. But if they set up a company structure for their trading activities, it's taxed at 5%. So yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. It's boring for some, interesting for others, but Malta has been quite a hub for financial services for many years. Again, thanks to having the British system, it makes us quite an easy jurisdiction to work with. Tax treaties with many, many different countries around the world. So it's quite a safe jurisdiction in that sense, and it's part of the EU. So that allows companies to then operate freely across the continent. Yeah.
Thank you so much for highlighting all of that. It might be the first time some people are hearing this, and if they're already EU residents, yeah, could definitely be an option to look at Malta after they visit as a nomad, start checking out the island. So that brings me to my final question, Luca. Can you make the case for Malta? Why should I go there instead of like the next door neighbor of Sicily or another country in Europe that I've been thinking about? What makes Malta so special for you? Besides the fact that you're born there.
I mean, like it's an interesting place. I think it's the kind of place that you can come to, and if you're a social person, you could potentially become like a big fish in a small pond over here. Get to know a lot of people who are kind of very interesting and doing very exciting things. I think it is an interesting place to kind of set yourself up and enjoy like a nice Mediterranean lifestyle whilst then being very connected to all of Europe. So it's very easy to fly from Malta, the Ryanair hub, the EasyJet hub. So it's like flights are everywhere. But if I had to say the main thing that makes Malta an interesting place for digital nomads is that it's kind of got that pirate feeling to it, where you're you're on an island, you're surrounded by people who are doing business all over the world, and it's got like a lot of history that you can uncover along the way too.
That's what I took away was the history. It was incredible. And if you're an archaeology fan at all, get over there as soon as you can. It's you're gonna see some really interesting ruins and things like that.
Definitely, definitely. And it has always been so, a place for travelers to come to, for people from all over the world to mix and kind of set up a new life in that sense. So I think it is an interesting place to have like a base from, for sure.
Yeah, and don't miss the island of Gozo. I really enjoyed that as well. Okay, well, Luca, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we go, including where people can follow you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I'd say you can find me as under Luca Arrigo. I'm on Instagram, on X, under my name as well. If you'd like to follow what I'm doing in my day-to-day life, I post quite a bit on those channels. So it would be great to hear from you. And if you're in town, definitely reach out, and maybe I can help you out with some more personalized advice on if Malta is right for you.
Thank you so much, Luca. Have a nice time in Malta and hope to be back there soon.
See you.
See you.